Okay, what's up, Dragon Ball Super family? I'm Legends Kerrick, and I just finished the Zenkai Cup, finishing with a third place finish. I went second all day, which is brutal for a blue deck, but I managed to eke it out with my only loss being to SS4 Goku and Vegeta. He played it really well, and I misplayed my final turn, which I think cost me the game. So that was kind of a pain, but it was super fun playing this deck. I've actually never been able to play this deck in turn before. Shout out to the guy who top 16 at Nationals with this deck, or top 32. I definitely took a lot of inspiration from his deck. I like the idea that he chose no floodgates, so we didn't just lose straight up to like Almighty Resistance or like Omen of Awakening. And instead, I made like Bean my floodgate. But we're just gonna hop right into this deck profile. I decided to play Beerus, God of Destruction Returns. Uh, it's mainly because I thought so. Last Zenkai Cup, I played a lot of blue, and I was like, man, I really wish I was playing Beerus to farm these blue decks. And then all this blue stuff came out for this format, like in set 19. So I was like, man, I feel like people are going to play blue. And so I chose Beerus because, like, man, if I'm going to face against blue, I really want the upper hand. And I did face against one blue. So the majority of my matches were red, and I was like, wow, I was so wrong there. But it worked out in the end. We were able to defend, and we killed people by tapping 16 three times, and then we actually combated somebody down once. So that was fun. So to talk about the leader, this is the reboot version of this leader. Its front side is just when this card attacks a leader card, which is kind of a pain. You can choose one. You can draw a card. Always do. Or you can choose to KO one of your opponent's 2-drops or less or something like that, right? And then if your leader is at 4 life or less, or you have 4 more energy, you can untap 1, draw 1, and flip this to the backside for your Awaken. On the backside, he no longer has to attack a leader. He gains as permanent when your opponent's life is at 4 or less. They don't take any more damage from your leader swings, and instead you can ramp the top card of your, or one of the cards, sorry, one of the cards in your drop area into your energy, and then when he attacks, he maintains that option to draw a card, or you can KO a 3-drop or less now. It's almost always drawing a card. And of course, we play him because he has this activate main where you tap 16 and you just win the game. You effectively Hakai somebody. So obviously, you can spend all your time not getting pressured. Instead of getting pressured, you spend your entire time just ramping your energy up to the top, right? And then eventually you just win by 16. And blue generally doesn't have enough pressure unless they're playing like Gohan or something. It's probably the only other deck I can think of. Versus red, you're kind of just playing it as a ramp leader, as the guy who top 32 said, right? Like you're playing a very reliable ramp leader. You guarantee to have objection on turn 2 effectively, unless neither player attacks. Like unless your opponent doesn't attack you on their turn and they negate your attack, then you obviously don't have access to objection. But like otherwise, you have guaranteed objection on turn 2, which is really sick. And then furthermore, like as you go later into the game, you have like incremental ramp. Like you can ramp again on 5, and then maybe you can ramp again on 6. So like you get a ton of energy to play with. And then the leader just being like a standard blue leader is like fine. None of the other ramp leaders really do anything that's like crazier than this, right? And most importantly, your ramp package is really small. So if you're playing like SS4 Vegeta to ramp, one, your Awaken is terrible. You just draw 1. Your backside effect is not amazing. Like you get 2 swings in, and then you have to play like these like heavy combo cards, a ton of cycle cards just to be able to ramp, like maybe ramp on your opponent. And then if your opponent negates all of your attacks early game, you're just a worse blue leader. Whereas like I said, this card guarantees to ramp, and then it's pretty much the same leader afterwards. So, as usual, we'll go through our deck profile in the style of like mulligans. This was a Zenkai Cup, so I did have to fit 8 Zenkai cards into my deck, and we'll talk about them as we go and what I would trade them out for. 4 copies of Whis Destruction's Aid. I gave all of my foils to my friend, so I'm playing non-foils. It's just a draw card cycle. If you're on the play, you almost always play this card. Yeah, I was never on the play today, so I never got that experience. But if you're on the draw, it's kind of risky to play this card into red. Most other colors don't have a way to clear it, but versus red, it especially like Sin or even like SS4 Goku and Vegeta, they can clear this card, so I wouldn't bother playing this on 1. And then for an activate main, you can tap 2 blue to put it in your energy, effectively becoming an objection, right? Except objection to put it in active mode. That's the only downside. But let's say you're going second, like you're on the draw, and you can't play this card, then you'll just keep it in your hand and you'll combo it off so that you can objection from your Z deck. So that's pretty cool. And then just another turn 1 play, and just really just cycle card and Zenkai requirement. We play 4 copies of Pan Glimpse of Talent. It's really just a barrier card that when you play this card, you can draw a card. That's all it really does, and then you can combo it off to create Z energy for your ramping plays. So that's all it really is in there for. If you're on the draw and you're not versus Sin, like maybe you're versus like Gogeta and you just assume they're playing like the Unison version, or just like a slower deck, you can feel free to play this on 1 just to cycle it, and you get 5k to combo off. This is one of the 4 cards I placed in Zenkai format. If I were not playing Zenkai format, I'd probably play the Borgos that has barrier. That way you have it kind of matters into blue. You're not really killing blue by combat, so the Borgos never really ever comes up, except maybe during Boo Wars where you're attacking each other as Boos. So that's the only card I would change out going into that. And then finally, the third card in our opening mulligans that we're looking for is Boo, Unison, Assault, Evasion, Destruction. This card's obviously just great, right? Like if you're a control deck, you're looking for Boo on turn 4. Specifically, it becomes turn 3 for this deck because turn 1 you'll charge, turn 2 you'll ramp, so then you'll have 3 energy, and going into 4 you'll play Boo, and of course since that you have 4 energy, now you can Awaken, right? And this lines up perfectly with SS4 Goku and Vegeta, because if you play Boo, Awaken, don't use your energy, and then at the end of the turn the Boo untaps, you now have 2 energy up for Dirty Burst, so it can't just Gogeta your hand into Oblivion. So you're kind of looking for one of these 1-drops, depending whether you're on the play or on the draw, and then you're looking for Boo, right? Like that's like your standard mulligan. And then our backup Boo, we played 4 copies of SS4 Son Goku and Otherworld Blitz. This is another card that we really just played because it's Zenkai, but it is actually just a really good card. It's a 0 for 5k, which is super important, right? But it also is a board clear. I think I played it for 4 once in this game. I didn't unlike like I made some changes from the deck I got inspired from, and I didn't play any facilitators to clear my drop area. I either was able to play this for 4, or I just waited till turn like 6 to play it if I really needed to. The card's cool. A lot of times it found its way into my charge, but like if you don't have any battle cards in your drop, you pay 4 to play this dude, right? Like that almost never happened. When you play this card, it draws a card. That's super valuable, and then you can bottom deck any amount of your opponent's battle cards, not ignoring barrier, equal the amount up to the amount of extra cards you have in your drop, which was I think like 3 at most at one point. So it's pretty cool that he swings the board in favor, and then at the end of the turn, he switches himself up to active mode as a blocker, and he switches one of your energy up to active mode. So versus SS4 Gogeta, that's crucial, because now you can afford to tap out between, as long as you have Boo and Goku on the field, you can afford to tap out and still keep the 2 up for Dirty Burst, right? So this is like my backup Boo. If you don't have any battle cards in your drop area going into your opponent's, like going into your turn 5, like you can play Boo on 4 and then this on 5, and you're just sitting pretty until the rest of the game. It's pretty hard to get through that. Moving into some of our defense, like I said, this was a no floodgate version of the list, so it's just a lot of combo power and way to like stop your opponent from playing the game. Of course, once again, it was tuned towards red because versus blue and yellow, we probably just win the game anyway, and then versus green, we automatically lose the game. But ironically, versus green, I played against Dredgeku. He just couldn't find any hand control pieces for the first 5 turns of the game. So like I just had a blast. Like I got to 15 cards in hand before he could even begin hand controlling me, and I was already at like 15 energy before he even got to take his like first real hand control turn. So that was really good. Play 4 copies of Realm of the Gods, Beerus Destroys. This is really just to remove the Vegeta, SSB Rush Attack Vegeta, and the Goku. I know they both have barrier when they attack, but we play the Pilaf to remove the barrier. Also, it's just like another super combo in the deck. Like, you just tap 1, 10k out of something, and then draw a card, right? So it really punishes those SS4 Goku and Vegeta leaders for leaving their attack at 20k, or leaving their Unison or leader attack at 20k. So it's pretty cool. 3 copies of Group Leader Pilaf. This is really a respect card for Sin Shenron. A lot of times Sin Shenron, especially when you have Boo developed, like they'll go into their 8-drop, they'll give it barrier, then attack. So you can just Group Leader Pilaf, rip off the barrier, and then Boo bottom deck, and now they've just lost two cards from hand, right? And you've traded 1. So that's like a really positive trade, right? And you're never going to push your opponent down in life versus red. I just realized that like if you just don't attack your opponents, you just only attack like the battle cards or unisons, like your opponent can just never go down to their crazy plays where they have access to super combos. So this card is cool. I used it to remove triple strike once during the day. I removed a couple double strikes, a couple crits. Card came in clutch a lot. It's definitely like a really cool blue staple while Sin Shenron's in the format. And then the only floodgate I played was 4 copies of Sensu Bean. I really wanted this card because I'm tapping down to 1 or 2 a lot of my turns, going to my opponent's turn. So this obviously gives me that 3rd energy to be able to use Dirty Burst, be able to have like these Beerus super combos live, or these Beerus Realm of the Gods cards lives. The 1 energy, but more importantly, it just made my leader a 20k, right? So it makes all those 15ks from like Yamcha, the Unison. It makes them so useless in these attacks, right? But otherwise, versus blue and other matchups, I'm just charging it a lot. This deck definitely got weaker with the nerf to Beam, but it's still a good like floodgate for your opponent's defensive side. Also, it's like the only like soft floodgate that your opponent can't interact with, which is super cool. Of course, 4 copies of Dimension Magic. I have too many blue decks built, and I just don't have enough foil Dimension Magic left to put them in all my decks. 3 copies of Dirty Burst. This card is stronger notionally than it is as an actual card. A lot of times I would go into my opponent's like turn 4, especially if they're playing SS4 Goku and Vegeta. I played that matchup like 3 times today. I wouldn't even have a Dirty Burst in hand, but I just leave 2 energy up going to their turn, and they just won't commit their Gogeta, right? Or their Gogeta H-Drop. Because if they do commit the Gogeta H-Drop and I did have it, they just lose the turn, which effectively gives me a whole extra turn as Beerus, which is all you need. So, like, yes, this card's at 3, but I might just cut it to 2 in the future, right? And just, like, Gogeta players are cutting their Gogeta down to 2 and 3 because they're realizing they can't play it as easily. So I might just cut this card down to 2 and then just leave the 2 energy up going to my opponent's turn and threaten this card. And then as soon as they tap down away from 4 energy, now this card just becomes a negate. And I'm glad I didn't have like a dead copy of the card in my hand. Super Combo Split, 2 for the draw, 2 for the Zeno. Didn't regret this at all, honestly. The Zeno came in clutch. Obviously, in a perfect world, you'll get to use these first, and then you get to ramp them back into your energy, then you'll Zeno them back up so you can use them again. That happened like maybe once. But most of the time, the Zeno just helps you out. Because on turn 3, you're going to tap out to get your ramp. Or turn 2, sorry, you're going to tap out to get your ramp to 3 energy. So like the Zeno helps you get out of that. Lets you pick up an energy and maybe not push yourself to awakening. In an ideal world, you try not to awaken on your front side. Until your turn, so like it gets you out of that, and then you can combo that with like a Realm of the Gods Beerus to like really get out of your opponent's early game pressure. 2 copies of Godsong Technique, really just a respect for the mirror and for Ramp Coup, any kind of like blue control matchup. It sometimes hits overrealms, but like the card was actually horrible today because I played so much red. Yeah, not much to be said about it. This is a Zenkai Cup, no side, so you kind of have to put all your text in the main. 4 copies of this Vegeta. This card's like the most insane card in this deck. It almost always ramps 4 unless you see Hatch or like a much needed Dirty Burst. Even if you do see the Dirty Burst, it's better to like pick up the Dirty Burst, hold it in your hand, and think with your opponent, and then and then just put it down and be like, hey, I got it. And then just leave the 2 energy going. Like you mind game your opponent with Dirty Burst, right? Like that's like the real strength of the card. You should get to mind game your opponent. I mean, it's also the strength of Gogeta 8, right? Notionally, it's stronger than the card itself. But yeah, this card's insane. Like you just ramp 4, it becomes it free checks a unison for 1 life or free checks a battle card, and then like it stands itself up as a blocker. My misplay in the game I lost was not blocking with this first, because SSB Rush Attack Vegeta really checks this card like really well. So all I had to do was block with this card first, leave my Boo unison up for a blocker later. So that really cost me the game. Okay, not much more to be said about this card. It's insane. 2 copies of KO Rampaging Demon. I like never played this card. I probably would cut this card going forward. It was really just a respect card for yellow, but I mean, seeing as how the format is, like Ape Ku's the only deck in yellow for Zenkai. This card never came down. If I had 6 energy, which is what I had when I would play Kale, I would just rather play another World Blitz because this at least replaced itself, and just having cards in your hand to like defend your opponent's turn was way better. Most of the time, this removed just as many cards as Kale would, and then it became a blocker afterwards. Like it's just infinitely better version of the card. I'm sure Kale has its value when you're trying to push for game. Like you can like 2 double strike dual attack or double strike swings, but I charged it a lot. I bottom decked it a lot with super combos. I don't know what it would be, but it just was not great today. 1 copy of Android 17 Turning the Tide in case I had to win the game this way. There were no games that I had to win this way. It's just so hard because I'm trying to keep my opponent at 6 life. I'm not really taking them down to 4 and then doing the Boo Android 17 Turning the Tide combo. Mainly because your leader doesn't deal damage to your opponent. So if your opponent's at 4 life, like even and you have Boo up develop and you play this, you're still not killing your opponent, right? You just ramp 1 when you attack your opponent. So the card's like okay, it's cool if you have like a super board develop, like say you have like another World Blitz developed and you have Boo, and then like suddenly this card becomes really good. It also pairs really well if you have like 14 energy with like the Cell Z card because it's 2 crit damage and then you can finish them off with Boo. But in that world it's good. Otherwise, like keeping your opponent at 6 is just a more consistent way to play this game, so they can't, or this deck. 1 copy of Baby Golden Avenger for absolutely no reason. I actually have no idea when I would use this card. I put this in here because I was like, man, I feel like I need this for blue, and if it comes up, it comes up. In theory, like actually would never come up. You're not going to beat blue matchups by attacking them down, right? So like stopping Baby Hatch doesn't do anything for you. None of your cards outside your leader gets value from attacking. So like that does nothing. The only time I think this card would have been good is if I was playing Jiren, right? Because then you can leave 7 mana up going into your opponent's turn if they have like 7 energy, or if they're gonna slam their Android turn to the tide, then you can like Jiren and then back it up with this card. Like that's the only thing I can really think of. Because like stopping a Hatchiyak does nothing for this deck. I probably wouldn't play this card again in the future. One copy of Sun Gohan Power Reclaim. I probably would play more copies of this. I mean, it would have helped me out early game a lot. It was kind of like my Okie Doke card. One of the ways of like baiting my opponent going all in and dumping their hand on a battle card after like I just like burnt a ton of resources or something. It's also the other reason I played 4 beans, just to like battle trick my opponent. Bottom deck that card mid combat. Like if you have 4 or less life, you can pay 3, play this card, bottom deck your opponent's battle card, or any card you want that does not have barrier. And then also early game versus SS4, Goku and Vegeta, it's super powerful, and I just wish I played more copies of this. Because you can, when your opponent attacks and then they play the 4-drop kicking Goku, in that same combat, you can combo out of their current attack with this card, and then pay the 1 to bottom deck that Goku before it attacks, and you just get so much value. Even if you don't combo out of that attack, like you get so much value, because you get a Z energy for your ramp play, and you get to remove that Goku. I just wish I played more copies of this in the deck. And of course, my SER choice was Baby Hatchiyak. That dude is right. Like Goku is super cool dream. You can win 1 turn earlier, maybe. But Hatchiyak actually does buy you turns, right? Like that's truly what you need to be able to set up your hand, especially if you can use the Hatchiyak to maintain your Boo on the field. Like that's 2 more draws. Like you traded to Hatchiyak, like you lost 2 cards for Hatchiyak, right? Because Hatchiyak in the card and you play it. But then you replace those 2 cards with your Boo and your leader, and then whatever other plays you're going to make that turn. So like Hatchiyak truly does buy you the turns you need. And of course, if you ever get to like 15 energy and you just have Hatch, like you win the game. Like having Goku there would have won the game that turn, but like who cares? Like it's the same amount, right? So that was super simple. Obviously no side deck because this was a BO1. No sides, so we'll just quickly over the Z deck. 3 copies of Whis from on high. I never wanted a 4th copy. I barely even could go into the 3rd copy. This deck does not generate Z energy very quickly, which is fine. Like we don't need to. Even if your opponent's pushing your face in really quick, you're not comboing that many cards from your hand. So like the amount of Z energy you generate maybe at most is like 4 a game. This card's nuts. On auto speed, when it's played, you choose a blue card from your drop area and put it in your energy. Now, this is a huge decision point because you can put like spent super combos back in your energy. You can put spent dimension magic to get a 5th dimension magic to use in this game back in your energy, right? Like you can use all these super cool tools to reuse in your energy. A Beerus destroys, like whatever you had to do. So that's really freaking powerful. Like I said, I really only use 2 every game, like 1 on turn 2 and then maybe 1 on turn 5. And then if I ever did get a chance to use a 3rd, it would be 1 on turn like 7 or something like that, or 6. Whenever you ramp with, like after you ramp with the Vegeta. Play 2 copies of Cell. The first one is to clear fields on turn 5. It's really the only turn you can really access it because your turns 1, 2, or sorry, on turn 4 with 5 energy. But your turn 1, 2, and 3 are kind of spoken for in this deck. So the first one's to clear board on turn 4, and then the second one is in case you have to kill somebody with Turning the Tide. So like by the time you play Turning the Tide, you probably do have 10 energy up because you'll have ramp before, probably more than 10 energy. So you're like Turning the Tide for 7 and you'll play this for 3. That's 2 crit damage and then Boo will finish them off. It's like the dream for that play. 1 copy of Vegeta in case you really did just have to grind out your games and you didn't have a better play, but like 99% of the time there's just a better play. Like this card is a better play every time. This Vegeta over here, the ramp Vegeta, is just a better play every time. So like this card almost never came up, but there was nothing I would have replaced it in. Like maybe a 4th Whis. I don't know. The cards. If I had to kill somebody, I guess this would come up, but it never did. And then 1 copy of Beerus. This card like never comes up in this deck as well. It's just cool tech to have in case you're playing against yellow. You need to remove Slug or something like that. But like it could almost never attack in this format because Wolf Fang kills it, right? Like blue is able to peel off it and then remove it. It's cool to remove Boo Unison in like the blue matchup because it's 3 attacks into a Boo Unison. So that's really cool for 4 energy. But like you gotta ask yourself, like when are you really dedicating 4 energy to that, right? Especially like, let's say you're on turn 5, you're not going to dedicate 4 energy to that because you're probably going to spend 3 energy on this to ramp to get ahead of your opponent, and then 2 on the other Z card. Maybe you spend 3 on this and then develop this just to like have it set up, but then your opponent can play their own Beerus and clear it, so that doesn't make any sense. And let's say if you have 6 energy, like obviously you can't play this in the blue matchup because they're going to God Seal, right? So you're going to spend your leader and your unison attack into their boot, probably get negated. Then you're probably just going to spend 3 energy on this and ramp, and then 3 energy on another one and ramp. Like that's just way better than like trying to clear their boot unison just to be able to play this down, you know? Your opponent eventually does run out of dimension magics and hard negates, and you're not on any time clock, right? They're the one that's on the clock to try to beat you, so they have to spend cards frivolously. Like I would still keep the card in, it just like rarely comes up, and I didn't ever find like a necessity for a second one, of course, because I never even cast the first one. That's my entire Beerus God of Destruction Returns deck profile. It was super fun to play. I obviously, as people know, I enjoy control decks. If you want to be a control player, the best way to get better at it is learn all of your games, like learn all of your matchups just going second. When you sit down with your friends and they ask you to die roll, just be like, nah, I'll just go second, right? Because like obviously if you're a control deck and you're going first, it's significantly easier. You're an energy up on your opponent, like you don't feel as much pressure, but like you got to learn to play from the backside of it, and that way you can cement those lines in your head and realize how much of your limits that you can push. You can see how late you can use Baby Hatchet. You can see what damages you can choose to take. That's all I got for that. But shout out to Foex PPG, always super dope team to play with. We tremendously grew this year, so I'm really glad to have all the new guys on the team. Shout out to my Fort Walton Beach crew. Like this is one of the strongest locals in the country. Like, and I'll throw down for that. Like, if anybody wants to do a locals challenge, like my locals versus yours, it'd be super fun. Like, we'll do it. I truly believe everybody at my locals helps me to get better at this game, and we all in turn help each other to get better at this game. Shout out to my family, shout out to my friends, and to my girlfriend. This was super fun. I'm really glad for those of you who joined me on stream today just to watch my games and cheer me along. It was super fun. I look forward to meeting every one of you at any event that you decide to come out to. I'll catch y'all next time.